Hello, and welcome to this week's broadcast of Hammock Happenings, where we will discuss the revolutionary theories of Samuel P. Huntington.
Before getting into Huntington's theory, we'd like to first give you all some background information on the man himself.
Known as one of the most influential political scientists of the last 50 years, Huntington was born on April 18, 1927 in New York City. His father was a journalist and editor for a national trade paper, and his mother was a short story writer.
Huntington graduated from Yale at age 18, then briefly served in the military from 1946 to 1947. He earned his master's at UChicago and started teaching at Harvard at age 23 after completing his PhD at the university.
From 1958 to 1962, Huntington served as the Associate Director of the Institute of War and Peace Studies at Columbia, but then returned to Harvard as a professor until 2007 when his poor health forced him to retire.
Huntington's political views and theories were formed by the happenings of the 20th century, including World War II and the Korean and Vietnam Wars.
Huntington agreed with Tocqueville and Weber in that revolutions lead to stronger, more centralized, and more bureaucratic states.
However, Huntington disagreed with Marx and Engels in the origins of revolutions. Huntington theorized that capitalist and socialist revolutions occur in poor countries that are on the brink of modernization.
Huntington strove to find the connection between modernization and revolution.
What Huntington ultimately theorized was that while modernization doesn't lead directly to revolution, revolutions may occur in a modernizing society if it leads to a change in the balance of power.
A key part of modernization, according to Huntington, is the demand of social groups for more political power.
As groups who do not have access to politics strive for involvement, their demands to increase participation may lead to a revolution.
A revolution, as Huntington defines it, is a quick, fundamental, and violent domestic change in the dominant values and myths of a society, in its political institutions, social structure, leadership, and government activities and policies.
Thus, Huntington determines that coups, rebellions, insurrections, revolts, and wars of independence are all very different from revolutions.
A coup changes leadership and maybe policies.
A rebellion or insurrection may change policies, leadership, and political institutions, but not social structures or values.
A war of independence doesn't necessarily change the social structure of either of the participating communities.
Huntington's main point, though, is that a revolution is a characteristic of modernization. It is the ultimate expression of the modernizing outlook.
That's right, Peter. An idea of modernization is that within an individual's power is the ability to control and change one's environment.
And not only does an individual have the ability to do so, they have the right to do so.
So, because revolution is a part of modernization, a revolution won't just occur at any point in time in any type of society.
Revolution won't happen in a super traditional society with very limited social and economic complexity.
But it also won't happen in very modern societies.
Revolution will occur, according to Huntington, in societies that have undergone some sort of economic and social development, and where the political modernization and development are much less prominent than the social and economic changes.
So what is political modernization? It's the extension of caring about politics to new social groups and the actions of those groups towards participation in government.
On the political side of a revolution, we have a quick expansion of political awareness and the rapid mobilization of new groups into politics.
The key here is that the mobilization of new groups is so fast that the existing political institution can't assimilate them.
Revolution is the intense exponential increase in political participation. If the existing political institution can allow for more groups to participate, revolution won't occur.
Okay, but even once the new groups have entered the political scene, the revolution still isn't complete. The second step of a true revolution is the creation and institution of a new political order.
The creation of the new political order is imperative and very fast. The faster the political mobilization and institution occurs, the more revolutionary that revolution is.
Also, the greater the expansion of political participation in a revolution, the more revolutionary the revolution.
The success of a revolution, therefore, is determined by the authority and stability of the institutions created after the fact.
So those are Huntington's general views on revolution. More specifically, though, he divided revolutions into two patterns, the Western Revolution and the Eastern Revolution.
As misleading as it is, Western revolutions don't only happen in the West, and Eastern revolutions don't only happen in the East. The first part of the Chinese Revolution, for example, Huntington considers Western, while the second phase is Eastern. These are just names that define the general progression of the revolution.
And now we're going to look at what Western and Eastern revolutions look like.
To the Western Revolution.
The Western pattern of revolution starts with the collapse of the old regime. Once the old regime collapses, the revolutionary process has begun. At this point, the deciding factor whether or not a major revolution will occur is the conditions existing before and after the collapse of the old regime.
The collapse of the old regime will be followed by rioting from the previously suppressed groups. However, the revolutionary process can be stopped right here if a new force can secure control of the state and piece back together the remnants of the old regime. In doing so, they stop revolutionary groups aiming to place new groups into politics.
The dispersion of power is crucial to the beginnings of a revolution. The more groups of people that wish to participate in politics, the better.
There are three social types that play major roles in the political mobilization: the moderates, the counter-revolutionaries, and the radical revolutionaries.
The moderates often assume power initially, establishing a democratic or constitutional state. They describe this state as similar to the previously existing constitutional states.
However, the moderates are swept from power as they are not ruthless enough to prevent the mobilization of new groups in politics, and they are not radical enough to lead these groups.
Next come the counter-revolutionaries. The counter-revolutionaries try to stop the expansion of political participation. They aim to create a state with very concentrated power. The counter-revolutionaries are often in the military and willing to use force to gain power.
However, they fail to radicalize revolutions and mobilize more social groups to participate in politics, leading to their downfall.
Finally, the radical revolutionaries aim to expand political participation, bringing new forces into politics. This willingness to bring more people into politics allows the radical revolutionaries to attract large masses of the population.
Through social, economic, and nationalist appeals, revolutionary leaders attract people, especially peasants and lower-class citizens, to their movement.
Gaining the support of the peasants, one of the largest groups of people in a country, is crucial to the revolutionary movement and is done by the best revolutionary leaders.
The day the old regime falls is the day the Western Revolution starts.
In Western revolutions, the capture and consolidation of power is usually very quick.
And now to the East. The Eastern pattern of revolution starts with the mobilization of new groups into politics and the creation of new political institutions. The principal struggle of the revolution is between one revolutionary group and the established order.
Eastern revolutions are typically directed against at least partially modernized regimes.
The moderates are weak and do not occupy positions of authority. They are crushed by the government or other revolutionaries, or are forced by the polarization of the process to join one side or the other.
Revolutionaries first withdraw from the central urban areas of the country and then establish a base area of control in a remote section before trying to gain support of the peasants and intimidate the lower reaches of officialdom through terror and propaganda.
The stronger the revolutionary movement becomes, the less it tends to rely on terrorism.
There is a prolonged period of dual power in which the revolutionaries are expanding political participation and authority in their institutions of rule at the same time that the original government is continuing to exercise its rule.
Eastern revolutions involve a long, drawn-out process. Since the existing regime is modern, with more power and legitimacy, it does not simply collapse and leave a vacuum of authority. No quick victory is possible.
The government must be completely overthrown through violence.
As the scope of the new institution's authority expands, the institution gradually escalates the level of their military operations from individual terrorist attacks to guerrilla warfare and then to mobile and regular warfare.
Once the new institution overthrows the existing government, they occupy the capital and the revolution is over. So, as we said earlier, a revolution, according to Huntington, is a fast and violent expansion of political participation.
Therefore, its causes stem from the interaction between political institutions and social groups.
There are two prerequisites for revolution. First of all, the current political institutions are unable to allow for more participation in politics. Second, there must be social groups with a desire to participate in politics that can't.
Thus, revolutions won't happen in political systems that can accommodate greater participation.
What that means is that revolutions are super unlikely to happen in very institutionalized modern political systems, such as communist or capitalist systems, because these systems are designed to integrate new groups into politics.
Revolutions have occurred in either very traditional monarchies with very centralized states, think about Russia, China, or France, or in military dictatorships with very concentrated power, like Mexico or Cuba, or in colonial regimes, like Vietnam.
The key to revolution is the social groups aspiring for involvement. To achieve their goals in politics, they must find access to political leaders. If they can't, the group becomes alienated and frustrated.
If this frustration and alienation is felt by several social groups and they join forces, a revolution can occur.
For a successful revolution, the alliance of social groups must include rural and urban participants.
Ultimately, the likelihood of a revolution starting in a modernizing country depends on three things. 1. The degree to which the urban middle class, the intellectuals, the professionals, and the bourgeoisie, are alienated from politics. 2. The degree to which the peasants are alienated from politics. And 3. The extent to which the urban middle class and the peasants join forces to fight the same enemy, the government, for the same cause, which is usually nationalism.
Revolutions don't happen if the peasants and the urban middle class aren't frustrated at the same time.
The faster the social economic modernization occurs, the more likely a revolution is. Slowing social change reduces the possibility that the urban middle class and the peasants will be frustrated at the same time.
This concludes Huntington's theory of revolution. Goodbye, and thank you for tuning in to this Hammock Happenings segment.
Do you ever stop laughing?
Yeah,
Right.
Peter, you're right.
Say it like that, Peter. You right.
That's right, Peter.
Wait, actually.
The collapse of the old regime. Blooper.
Revolutionaries first withdraw from the central urban areas.
Peter, you gotta look at the camera.
Revolutionaries
just
first.
Wait,
Is it too hard for you to just read? Watch this. Peter can't read.
Woo.